people in our community who have to endure cancer and health problems because they have trucks 1,000 a day running in front of their house down on the south end, and they are stuck. That is wrong.
So as we continue this march, and we are chanting about climate justice and the global economy that we live in, let us not forget the local fight that happens every single day.
Down here is like part of our wardrobe, our inhalers and stuff.
All my life living down here. I'm 33 years old and I've always had asthma and all my kids got it too.
The influence of geography is both the natural landscape and also the built environment, what we as humans have done to the environment. But then there's also the component of policy. So when we're going to build a public housing complex, we're using taxpayer money, and we are not going to put that on the most expensive land. Right? It's unlikely to be a waterfront property. And in fact, we'll put it on the cheapest land, which is also where people put factories. It's also where, in the case of Ezra Prentice, it's by the port. And so they have all the traffic going to the port, both the trains and the trucks. They built it near the port because that land was available at a price that the county would pay.
On March 27, 1962, residents and business owners of this neighborhood were told their properties had been appropriated by the state via eminent domain for the future site of the Empire State Plaza.
It was disturbing in the fact that you had no idea if you were ever going to see the friends that you had made there.
Barbara Lucas Roberts grew up on Jefferson Street. That is now the location of the New York State Museum. She was 12 years old when her family was forced out of their home.
Just knowing that that area was where I lived, where we lived, and the house was demolished to prepare for that area. There were families, there were friendships that were attached to all of that.
State records tell us that 6,800 people approximately were displaced for the South Mall. 3,300 dwelling units, several hundred businesses, 400 businesses.
All of these places, any place you look at an urban renewal project, a disproportionate number of the people who are displaced are Black and are poor, or poor. And those are the people for whom finding replacement housing is hardest. I mean, it's hard to lose your childhood home. It's hard to move away from all your friends. I mean, there's so many things that you lose with that. And that it wasn't a choice on the part of your family is even harder.
On the one hand, federal government made urban renewal money available to cities to demolish large chunks of so-called slums or so-called blighted areas. On the other hand, the federal government also said, okay, look, if you're going to displace people for urban renewal, you need to have replacement housing ready to go for them. You need to have, and we'll help you with the public housing. More often than not, though, urban renewal projects tore stuff down and kicked people out of their apartments and their homes, and didn't provide sufficient or early enough replacement housing. So I'm not aware of, in our research, I'm not aware of any urban renewal project that successfully relocated people from an urban renewal area after demolition immediately into replacement housing. There is usually a lag of several months or even several years. And this gets you to Ezra Prentice.
This neighborhood is a good neighborhood. It's just our quality of air has gone down.
Asthma is a disease that has an initial, something causes it, and then it's like can be a lifelong disease, and it gets triggered. So we know that certain types of pollution both are the initiating causes of asthma and also ongoing triggers for asthma attacks. We know the prevalence of asthma in the South End is higher than in other areas of Albany. That actually is part of community health assessments that have been done for the county and the region.
I've been down here since I was a little kid. I'm born and raised down here.
And you've always had asthma?
Always had asthma. So and my asthma actually is getting worse now. They just switched my asthma medicine. So I don't know.
So we conducted the survey from 2016 to 2018 at Ezra Prentice, surveying households on numerous different health issues that they had, also food access issues, which brought some other interesting things to light. How we organized the survey, how we administered the survey was we had resident outreach workers that were trained, and they went and talked to their neighbors and told them about it and invited them to participate in it. And so I think that really helped participation. We did a comparison group at Creighton Story Homes, which is a similar public housing complex located in the South End, but instead of being next to, in the southernmost tip with the port on one side, split down the middle by a busy state highway, bounded by two interstate highways. Creighton Story is in a much more residential neighborhood and is surrounded by trees and a big garden. And so we use that as a comparison group. I will say this is preliminary data. It is currently being prepared for peer review, and so it's pre-publication. But what we have observed is a 34% rate of asthma, prevalence of asthma at Ezra Prentice among residents there, and a 21% prevalence at Creighton Story. And so these are, similar demographics, but the one difference is the air that they're breathing and what's around them. And so it's evidenced by a 34% across the board. That's more than 1 in 3 people.
Sometimes you could be sitting outside and you smell this smell. And you'd be like, what is that? And it's like something coming from the train.
But they
Then you got the exhaust from all them trucks and stuff.
Every year I gotta clean all the soot off my screens in the window, because if my autistic son sticks his face on the screen, it'll be all black on his face. It's nasty. It's just so sad. And the train's still going. I mean, it's all, I don't understand what stopped. I heard they rerouted the trucks. It doesn't look that way to me. So.
Yeah, like when they be running under the bridge and they honk it, I start to cough because that's all the smoke that's going in my lungs and I can't hold that much.
Yeah.
So yeah, they messing me up too. They messing up my health.
Yeah.
My sister got COPD. and she lives right back there by the tracks.
Wow.
And before she came down here, she wasn't like that. We wasn't like that. We was out partying and dancing and having a good old time. Now, it's like, especially her, mine is getting worse, but hers is where she can barely walk around because she can't breathe. Yeah.
The studies were really prompted by the community's own concerns about their air quality and also what were the sources of the potential pollution in the area. So the community was concerned about the traffic, they were concerned about the port, they were concerned about the rail traffic. So those were the three things that they really brought up as attention to us. And I give a lot of credit to the community for advocating for themselves to actually draw attention that enabled us to do the study and understand better what was going on there. The objective of this study was to understand exactly what are the sources that are impacting Ezra Prentice. And the main thing that we learned is that the largest impact comes from the traffic-related air pollutants. So it's the traffic that's moving past Ezra Prentice. In particular, we even learned that it's not about the amount of traffic, it's specifically the truck traffic. And the truck traffic there is very different than it is throughout all the South End. So we surveyed the entire South End, both the environmental justice and non-environmental justice areas. We found that the levels of emissions were relatively similar all across those areas, with the exception of Ezra Prentice, and that everything really points at the high quality number of trucks which were coming through. So it's over 1,000 trucks a day, and I believe up to about 1,700 a day. That's something that was actually determined by the community themselves. So a really great thing that they did was not only express their concerns, but they went out as citizen scientists and they collected data, and they were able to come to the city and the state and say, we've measured 1,000 trucks a day that are coming through here. When we did this study, we really verified using our equipment what they had actually found out for themselves.
I used to sit out the window and count to like 20 and then see how many trucks. I couldn't get to 20 without a big truck coming by.
I mean, what we're gonna do, we can't afford to, just pick up and move someplace in a nice area, with the rent being so high, Can't afford that, so we gotta stay here. Ain't got no choice. Just stay here and wither away to nothing. That's the only thing I can say.
So I would like options like if you don't want to be in this area where you're not going to do anything about the air quality, then help us relocate. Because some families can't be in that. I mean, whether you can take it out, some people can't be in that. It's bad enough there's like no backyards. My kids can barely play outside as it is. So it's, I don't know. I would like the option and assistance getting out of here.
There's no question from the research that poor air quality is correlated with both race and socioeconomic status. That's been shown across the country, and I think it's something that we're now paying much more attention to here in DEC and also New York State and throughout the country.
When the initial environmental justice studies started coming out, looking at marginalized communities and pollution, there was a very, very clear link that particularly low-income Black communities, Latinx communities tended, you took out a map and marked where these communities were and where toxic waste dumps were and where different sources of egregious pollution were, there was very direct correlations, and that's really where environmental justice, looking at that, those were the first studies that came out, and there's incredibly clear links.
In the areas with older housing stock, you're more likely to have industries move in that cause pollution. There's also a not in my backyard phenomenon. I'm sure you've heard of it, NIMBY. I am unlikely to agree for them to build a train through my neighborhood, right? I have political power that other people don't have, right? And that's being used to determine how we build our environment, and that is one of the components of structural racism. Obviously, it's the political power of communities that live together, because you live near people who are like you, and those communities build up political power and use that political power to protect their community.
Fossil fuels have got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho, ho! Fossil fuels have got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Fossil fuels have got to go!
We're talking about 3 times the likelihood of African Americans having asthma. We're talking about the increase of the bodily harm based on stress. Because if you're breathing polluted air, it's a stress on your body. If you walk out your door and you're worried about the police confronting you, it is a stress on your body.
Yeah. Wow.
We're a state agency. What we learn here at Ezra Prentice is something that we can really apply to many other environmental justice communities. So the folks at Ezra Prentice did not just advocate for themselves, and they did not just advocate for the South End. Everything that we've learned from working here and continuing to work here is going to help other communities just like them.
I think when we talk about the concept of environmental justice, it's really important to keep in mind both that environmental harms should be shared equitably across society, and environmental benefits should be shared equitably across society. And it's that balance of those two things that's very, very askew currently.